Good afternoon, my name is Simon. Welcome to my new channel, Watching Watches. And what I'm going to be doing over the next few weeks is just showing you some of the watches that I have. I'm not even sure I want to call it a collection as yet, but the watches that I own. I've purchased watches, quite a number of watches over the years, and I think, like most people, I've got a box of watches which are old quartz watches which I've never bothered changing batteries, which I've started to get back into now. I know that the trends are very much on automatic watches nowadays, and I have quite a few of those too, but I am actually quite enjoying pulling out some of those old watches, changing the batteries, and previously I would have never sort of got involved in getting any kind of kits to open case backs and stuff like that, which I am doing now. So some of those old watches are coming back into service, and some of them are really quite interesting, some of them are quite vintage, and perhaps quite valuable. Some of them I've had for 30-40 years, so yes, I'm getting on a bit. Anywho, I'm going to kick off with the Seiko Presage Sharp Edge, the blue version, otherwise known as SPB167J1. So here we go. This was a watch which I had been trying to get for quite some time. This is actually now leaving my stable, hence I'm doing the video before it goes, and I'll get into that. So it comes with the usual Seiko book, and there should be a card in the back there. There is, and manual. I've got to say, you know, for a upper tier watch, you know, getting up there for close to £900 now, I expect a little bit better presentation. You know, these are quite generic now, and almost any Seiko that you get, whether it's £100 or £900 or £1,000 or £1,500, you're still getting the same box. And I think it warrants a little bit of investment in the presentation and the storage for watches which are a little bit more expensive. I think they should be commensurate with the cost of the watch. My personal opinion. I get that it's a bit of a, you know, when you buy a watch and it's a watch that it's like a daily driver, then the box just goes in the car, but then you never see it again until you decide to depart with the watch. But you know, so you're not really wearing the box, you're wearing the watch. But still, when you buy an expensive watch, you expect there to be a proportionate amount spent in the packaging. That's just my opinion. Anywho, let's get this open. So there's spare links in there which I've packed up ready to go, because I've now sold the watch and it's going off in the post. So the watch itself, this one is in fantastic condition. It really is. The buyer is getting a virtually immaculate watch. So the thing about these watches is obviously the texture on the face. I'm sure if you're watching this video, you probably know a little bit about this watch, and this goes back to some of the old Japanese plants. I forget which plant it was, hemp, maybe hemp leaf, something like that. The Japanese are very much into sort of making their watches designed based on some of their environmental sort of pointers. So you've got the same with the Grand Seikos, the snowflakes, and all the various other finishes that they have on textures that they have on the dials. That's kind of where this is at. It's in the same vein. So you have this blue, beautiful texture. It's got a little bit of a sunburst on it. It's more about the texture, so the texture does break up that little bit of the sunburst, but it's there. And certainly when you're I've got a light shining above now, I've got a light above, so that kind of brings out that texture quite nicely. But in general use, what I would say is that for the most part, it almost appears, and let me turn that light off temporarily. So, well, actually you are seeing it quite a bit now, even more in a way. But in my own personal experience, when you're sort of just wearing it on your wrist and not really sort of paying it too much attention. To me, it's almost a flat dark blue, almost black sometimes. So when you're just general doing stuff, if you're wearing this watch and you want it really to be apparent, the pattern, it's not so apparent in daily use, that I would say. Well, I can tell you one thing about these gloves, that they're not too much. I bought these on Amazon just the other day, and they're really, anyway. So really nice sort of sword shaped hands there. I have seen some sort of split opinions about the platter that the Seiko is on. So you can see that the pattern is broken, and you've got this little squared out area for the applied Seiko name, and that's, some people like it, some people don't. I'm actually quite okay with it. The Presage and automatic is printed on the actual texture there. Very nice finishing. The indices very, very nicely made. I would have liked to have seen some more lume on the indices. You've got these little dots on the ends. For me, I'm very much into lume. I want to be able to see my watch at night very clearly. Hence, I'm quite a big Seiko fan, as you will find out in due course, because their lume is great. And if you're not in the market for some of the upper tier watches, like, I don't know, the Rolexes, Panerais, all these other type of watches, which I'm not in that market, you know, I think Seiko has probably got pretty much the best lume in that kind of arena, that kind of area. The dial itself, as I say, very, very happy with the dial. Really liked it. As I say, the indices are very nice. You do have the polished sides on the indices with the brushed upper face. The upper facet is brushed, and that just creates that little glint. And when the light catches it, it just looks fantastic. And it's the same on the hands. If you notice, I've seen this on some of the other Presage watches. The actual the hands are, half of the hand, I don't know if you can see that, but half of the hand is polished, and the other half, it's split down the middle of the hand. One half is polished and one half is brushed, and what that does is, again, it just creates that little glint, and it means that in almost any light you can really see the time very clearly. I think you might be able to see this on one of my other watches. Hang on, you might see it better, yeah. So this is a cocktail. We'll do a video about this one at some point, but if you have a look, you can see that that side is brushed and that side is polished. That half is split down the middle. So, but this has lume. This one has no lume on it. This one has lume on it, so you're actually not seeing it so much, but I believe it is half polished. Yeah, it is half polished and half brushed. The date, I like the date because the background on the date is black, so if that would be white, it would really stand out, and it would take away from the overall harmony of the dial. So I like that it's got a black background, and that the numerals are actually not too bold and in your face. So again, it doesn't stick out too much, because them being white would have stuck out if they were bold. And you have a nice polished frame around the window, and that looks fantastic. So overall, when it comes to the dial, I really like the dial. I think it's great. This has the hardened coating, the extra sort of anti-scratch coating on it, which from what I can see, it really works really well. It really didn't attract any scratches whilst I owned it. I didn't own it for that long, but nevertheless, the first place I would expect to see scratches is on the buckle, because you're just doing that the whole time on the desk, and that's the first place to scratch. And I wasn't that careful with it, and it hasn't picked up any scratches, so I'm very happy with that. So it's called Sharp Edge. You can see the reasons there. You've got the sharp edges there. I quite like the way the lug sort of goes straight down at an angle, and that obviously fits in with the overall design language of it being a straight edge. You have a signed crown, which is very nice, and this is not a screw-in crown, so that you can wind at any time. And there is that grating, like almost like it's crystals in there that you're grating against. I actually like that. Some people want it to be smoother. I actually like it so I know that I'm actually winding the watch, and that for me is absolutely fine. The links, I actually like it. It's got a really good feel. They got a solid feel to them. The swapping out of the bracelet I actually found quite challenging, but still I've managed. I have, was it this watch? I'm trying to remember if I tried the different strap on this watch or not. But in any event, I did find it quite challenging. Now, swapping out the links on these are the ones with the pins and the barrels. You know, these are little, tiny little barrels which are like a little sheath. And if you've never changed or resized the Seiko strap with that system, you could quite easily lose that barrel, not even realizing that you've lost it. So that's one thing to be aware of if you've never changed one of these, is that there is a very, very small, let me see if I've got them in here. I've put all the links together so you can't see it, but I'm not going to take them apart to show you. Maybe I can show you. I've got this spare one which I've got taped to the side of my computer. So there you go. You see that tiny little barrel there? It's just a little, like a tube, tiny little tube, and that's what the pin tightens against. That's what holds it against the drilled holes inside each link. So you got to be careful when you push out the link. Those things just drop out. You got to do it on maybe a little mat or something like that so you don't lose anything. Just a little tip to be aware of, a very, very important tip to be aware of, because if you lose that, then you cannot successfully put the watch back together unless you buy some generic pins. Clasp. So this is a milled clasp. The actual top plate may be pressed, I'm not sure, but very happy with the clasp. It's got a very good movement to it. The actual application of it is very smooth. It feels very well made, very well put together. There isn't any sort of shake and rattle about it. The only big downside, as you might expect, is that there's only 2 micro movements there, micro adjustments, and for me it's not enough, because I'm quite picky about the position that the watch has on my wrist. I'm actually wearing another Seiko today. This is the King Turtle. I've had this watch for quite a long time, and it's I wouldn't say a daily driver, but it's one of my most worn watches. Really love the watch. But this one has 4 micro adjustments, and in the summer especially, your wrist swells a little bit, you want to just have a little bit more room. You can do that with these, because I'm just want to show you about so here you have, these are the regular sized links, but you do get a couple of half-sized links. So that's really the means that you have for adjusting. So you have these 2 half-sized links here, and those are another 2 spare full-size links. So by playing around with different connotations of the links, you can usually size it okay. And then you can do some micro adjustment with those 2 little micro adjustments on there. In practice, this was my main bugbear with this watch. I couldn't get it comfortable. And I tried to analyze why that was, because even if I wore it loose, I still just wasn't comfortable, and I really haven't really fully understood why. The only thing I could come up with is that most of the watches that I wear that I've been comfortable with have a raised area on the case back. So if I take the cocktail hour, I've put a suede strap on it, which I think works beautifully with this dial. But if you have a look at that, actually now that I'm looking at it, it's actually very similar, but it's a much lighter watch, so obviously it doesn't seem to have that effect on my wrist. But I'm trying to see what I can show you that I thought, I may be wrong, but this is the King Turtle, and it has the case back over here, it's raised, and the actual amount of case back that's touching your wrist is actually quite narrow. It's just this section here, whereas on the straight edge, sharp edge, it's pretty much the whole of this case back, and it's quite a large area, and I don't know if that's what was bothering me. The bottom line is that I couldn't get comfortable with it, and that's the only reason why it's going. And I really regret it, because I love the watch. I love the whole design language of the watch. What I wanted in this watch was something which didn't have a bezel on it, a rotating bezel. I've been a huge fan of rotating bezels, and I still am. I love having this elapsed time bezel. I don't like the GMT bezels. I'm all about the elapsed time, and I often use it throughout the day for timing things up to 60 minutes. It's a very, very standard thing that I use on a regular basis. But I was looking for something which was somewhere in between the driver's watch and a dress watch, and for me this absolutely perfectly fitted the bill, and had it been comfortable on my wrist, this would be my daily driver. But as it is, it was frustrating me no end, because I just couldn't enjoy it, and just to have it sit there because I love the watch, I like the look and design language of the watch, just wasn't a good enough reason for me to hang on to it. So I've sold it, and I've used the funds to finance the purchase of another watch, which will be arriving in the next couple of days. It's a Tissot. I have a few Tissots, a couple I should say. I now have a few, because that's the third one, and we'll be seeing that in the near future. You can see the exhibition case back there, and it's got the 6R35A movement, which is essentially the same movement as this one, as the 4R35B, but they've just adjusted it so you get the extra, I think this one is up to 70 hours power reserve, and this one is around 40. And so in reality, if you've got a watch winder, it really doesn't make a difference. But if you've got 70 hours, then you can leave it over a weekend and come back to it. If over the weekend you want to go sporty or you want to go smart, and then you go back to your daily driver for the rest of the week, your timing should be good to go. You know what, in practice, if you don't have a winder, you might find that over the weekend, as it winds down, as it loses some of that power reserve, it doesn't keep time as accurately. A lot of watches like to be as close to fully wound as possible to be at their best. So I've had various watch winders as well. I might get into that in the future as well. And I ended up just getting a relatively cheap one on Amazon. My family had bought me an 8 watch winder, but it just wasn't keeping the thing wound properly, so I sent it back. I went for a much cheaper 4 watch winder, and it actually works really well. Anyway, but we'll get into that another time. So there you've got the exhibition case back. It's nice to look at. It's a fairly rudimentary looking movement in terms of presentation. There's nothing fancy in there in terms of things like guilloche and all that kind of stuff. You wouldn't get it on this level of watch anyway. But sometimes you get, you do have a little bit on the rotor. There is there a little thing? Yeah, there is a little bit of vertical lines on there, which you can see. That's about it. So overall, what do I say about this watch is that if you can get it comfortable on your wrist, if it's comfortable, it's a fantastic watch. It's a stunning watch. It fits the bill so well for me in terms of what I was looking for. I just couldn't get it comfortable. So that's the only reason why it's going. Other than that, it's a really nice watch. I love this large winder as well. I do like these watches which can be wound that are not screw down. A screw down has its place, obviously, like in driver watches, but on a watch like this, I like to just pick it up and give it a few twists just to give it a top up, and you're good to go. So my verdict overall is, if you can get the watch comfortable, it's a fantastic watch, and you can buy them now at around the £500 mark on eBay quite easily, and that's an absolute bargain in my opinion. And I think that in the future these may well be quite collectible in the future. I mean, maybe not in the immediate future, but certainly at some point in the future. But who knows? We can never tell about that, about those kind of things, which trends take up and which don't. So let me give you some specifications. The caliber, as we said, is the 6R35. It's hacking, power reserve is 70 hours, you've got hand winding, sapphire glass, sapphire crystal. I'm not sure if the exhibition back is sapphire or not, to be honest. That may well be hardlex, I don't know. The case width without the crown is 39.3 millimeters. Thickness of the watch is 11.1 millimeters. Lug width 20 millimeters. Lug to lug 47.2. Water resistance 100 meters. And that is pretty much it. It's a great watch. I wouldn't hesitate to recommend it. If you've had these kind of things before and you've managed to get comfortable with them, then absolutely go for it. It's a great watch. I really would heartily recommend it. So there we have it. Thanks very much for watching. I hope you've enjoyed this first inaugural video. And what I would say as well is that I do have another YouTube channel which is completely unrelated to watches, and I'm going to be running this channel in exactly the same way, which is no frills. I'm not going to be doing any editing, no cool production, and no slide shots and zooms and fades. I'm not into that. To be honest, I don't really have the time to do all of that kind of production value. What I simply want to do is share my watches, and that's all it is, nothing else. So it's all going to be about the watches, not about me, just about the watches. And my setup is very basic. It's just sitting here on my desk with a little bit of material here as a background, and that's it. I have a couple of lamps. I have a fluorescent lamp above me, which is my desk lamp, and that's about it. So I hope you like that kind of direct presentation. That's what you're going to get in the future for the watches to come. I have to decide what the next one's going to be. I'm going to show you very quickly just the ones which I have to hand. So you've seen the Presage cocktail hour. I also have this Tissot C-Star 1000. This is an earlier version. I haven't even sized this one yet. I got it recently. I haven't decided if I'm going to keep it yet or not. That's really about all I have to hand right now. So for now, I will wish you well. Keep watching.